JD Vance just found out that elections have consequences. And in this breaking story, when you conduct yourself like a 15-year-old punk boy to a girl in high school, it really has consequences. And what our political landscape became in 2024, similar to but different from 2016, sounds to me like a high school punk student having a whiny, crying baby attitude towards running for the second highest office in the land. And JD Vance, that former Democrat who suddenly found Donald Trump and calls him a god. These are the things he decided to characterize Kamala Harris as before I show you this breaking story in just a few seconds. Take a look at this.
That Kamala Harris's VP nominee lied about his military service. I think that our veterans care a lot more about that. And the other thing that our veterans care a lot more about is that 3 years ago, 13 brave, innocent Americans died, and they died because Kamala Harris refused to do her job, and there hasn't been a single investigation or a single firing. I don't, look, sometimes mistakes happen. That's just the nature of government, the nature of military service. But to have those 13 Americans lose their lives and not fire a single person is disgraceful. Kamala Harris is disgraceful. We're going to talk about a story out of those 13 brave, innocent Americans who lost their lives. It's that Kamala Harris is so asleep at the wheel that she won't even do an investigation into what happened. And she wants to yell at Donald Trump because he showed up.
Now just stop for a millisecond and think about it. What you do, how you feel when suddenly someone, not to mention on the grandest public stage in America next to the Super Bowl, tells you to go to hell. What would be your reaction? And then he went on to say this.
She can go to hell. While we're not garbage for thinking that Kamala Harris has done a bad job, I think in a couple days the voters in New Hampshire are going to take out the trash in Washington, D.C., and that person's name is Kamala Harris.
Just stop right now in your tracks. And what would you do if someone basically to your face called you trash? Well, in this breaking story, while there are some norms that have been completely destroyed by Donald Trump in his first term, and many more norms that have been destroyed since, obviously, he didn't get reelected in 2020, and the norms that have been destroyed in the process of getting elected in 2024. This is what is likely to occur going forward in terms of breaking all sorts of norms. But Kamala Harris just decided, nah, I'm not doing it. That's enough. Take a look at this story. Breaking story, CNN reports no invite for pre-inaugural tour of the VP home for Vance family, sources say. There will be no pre-inaugural tour of the vice president's residence for the incoming Vance family, two sources familiar with JD Vance's plans told CNN, who noted he has not received an invitation to the residence from its current occupant, Vice President Kamala Harris. The nicety has been a recent norm, though Harris never went to the Naval Observatory prior to assuming the role in the aftermath of Donald Trump's attempt to overturn the 2020 election and the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. This time, it may not be the not-so-unexpected outcome of a particularly brutal campaign which featured Vance referring to Harris as trash during a November rally. She was also repeatedly attacked by Vance and Trump about her racial identity. Harris and Vance have not spoken since the November 2024 presidential election, a Vance advisor told CNN, though Harris did call President-elect Trump after the election to concede the race. CBS News first reported the lack of the invite. More than 8 years ago, in November 2016, then Vice President Joe Biden met with then Vice President-elect Mike Pence at the Naval Observatory. 8 years before that, in 2008, then Vice President Dick Cheney welcomed Biden to the Vice President's residence. Cheney's office said that at that time, the two spent nearly an hour there. The Vice President's official residence is located on the grounds of the U.S. Naval Observatory a couple of miles from the White House. The same source did add that Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff and the incoming Second Lady Usha Vance spoke for 45 minutes last week, but did not elaborate on the contents of the call. Now, many folks, this is the world we live in, would spin that into, oh, Kamala, you're being childish. Well, first of all, it's kind of important to note that because of a couple of different factors, she did not go and see her new residence before becoming vice president in 2020 for a couple of different factors. But it'll get spun into tit for tat. And again, this is why I reference childish high school behavior, because that's what the world I feel like I'm living in is. It's also one of the reasons why I consistently encourage you to always make sure that you commune, converse, engage with those you don't agree with. I just spent 4 hours literally this week on Monday night having a conversation with a longtime dear friend of mine who is a staunch conservative, so much so that when she mispronounces Kamala's name and says Kamala, I know that for this entire time, she's never once done or watched anything other than Fox News. But that doesn't mean, considering the person of her that I know, it doesn't mean that I can't possibly get her to shift her mind about a few things. So folks, as always, stay calm, converse with those you agree with, always talk with those you don't as well, and of course, stay frosty.